what began for me as kind of a journey into analogy and representation kind of switched, because at some point I began to get reports from people who are experiencing these small monsters, is the best way you can describe them, and they would have experiences with them here in the forest and through other places, Cape Cod, and then I started experiencing and telling stories in New Hampshire, Maine, down the coast of New England. I imagine that they're probably pretty much everywhere. They're just called by something different. And what people were doing is they were spotting them in the forest, and then they would have kind of a second encounter where the Pukwudgie would kind of invade their turf, and they would see the Pukwudgie in their house or while driving or someplace else, almost as if the Pukwudgie was coming back and telling them, I know where you live. You're not away from my grasp. I can get you if I want to. I was unfortunate enough to actually experience the bookends of the Pukwudgie, not the creature itself. So once, while investigating a cemetery in New Hampshire, Vale End Cemetery, I experienced we were pretty much inundated and surrounded by these bursts of light, these Taipaiwunkas, who all around us flashing, but also they began to draw us into the woods of that area. Then as we were leaving that cemetery, we were kind of chased out by something dark that rose up out of the ground, much like that shadow person. I later learned at that same cemetery people had been physically assaulted, that one person had actually died a few days after having experienced a creature there which very much matched the description of a Pukwudgie, which is where I started to piece all these different things about the Pukwudgie lore together and realize that these were creatures that were very much still alive and interacting with people here in New England, especially in the Bridgewater Triangle. When Loren Coleman originally set them out, he basically was working from the three Bridgewaters at the time: East Bridgewater, West Bridgewater, and then Bridgewater proper. And he began to extend things out as far as kind of he could record at that time. Well, obviously, the more you investigate a place and the more you report, the more different stories come in. And so stories began to come out of areas that were lying right outside of his defined triangle. In addition to that, he kind of stopped at Freetown, for example, but Freetown used to be, or parts of it, used to be Fall River, Fairhaven, Timberton, Rhode Island, different parts of the country or different parts of different parts of the state and other states that were being defined by man-made markers. And the power of the Bridgewater Triangle doesn't necessarily confine itself to that. So I began to see you could kind of expand it outwardly to where these kinds of reports were stopping. Very much in the way that Coleman originally did, but just by going by a different kind of barometer, if you will. I also began to include in kind of what the stories were being collected about the Bridgewater Triangle, the ghost stories, which Loren Coleman had touched upon but never had really gone into depth with. And being a paranormal investigator and covering much more of the ghostly side of things, that's what I was looking for. And so when you added that to the equation, the triangle began to expand even more. I think that it's only a name that separates Fall River from Freetown. They were part of the same town. Freetown broke off. Fall River broke off from Freetown. And I think that everything that has happened in the Lizzie Borden house fits in with the profile of the Bridgewater Triangle. For example, we often associate the hauntings that may be at the Lizzie Borden house with the spirits that were involved that day. So we associate it with Lizzie, we associate it with Andrew, we associate it with Bridget. And yet, much like a lot of things in the Bridgewater State Triangle, in the Bridgewater Triangle, like a lot of things associated with the Bridgewater Triangle, there seems to be a history of bad things happen in that location, as if for some reason that specific location itself is cursed. So we have tragedy that happened and murders that happened before Lizzie Borden. The theory has been put forth that Lizzie Borden might have been temporarily, at least, possessed by something darker, such as a demon. And that demon might even still be in existence in that house, and that's kind of what paranormal investigators are tapping into. So if you kind of take all of those factors together, the fact that it reeks of Bridgewater Triangle in terms of its theme or in terms of what's going on there, but also that the only thing that separates the two towns is the fact that they're named different things now, you really have to include Fall River and Lizzie Borden in with kind of the annals of what's up at the Bridgewater Triangle.